What's going on, everybody? Kalipis Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the BLU F92e 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G. Now, as always, if you do want to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the description, where I will be linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the BLU F92e 5G, we're getting a 6.5-inch IPS LCD display with a 720p resolution, a PPI of 270, and a 20:9 aspect ratio. With the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G, we're getting a 6.4-inch 90Hz Super AMOLED display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 411, and a 20:9 aspect ratio as well. So between the two, on one hand, the BLU F92e 5G is definitely not bad for what it is, and it is a little bit larger, so I will give it that. But overall, the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G is better in several different ways. First of all, with the Super AMOLED display, the colors are a bit nicer, and the brightness is also better as well. And this phone also has really good viewing angles. So as you can see, with the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G, they are quite a bit better. So if you're like outside in the sun, for example, the A33 5G will be quite a bit easier to see. So yeah, if you spend a lot of time outside, you will definitely get a better experience. In addition to this, the A33 5G has a 1080p resolution, making the image quite a bit sharper, whereas with the BLU F92e 5G, even though it doesn't look bad for only being a 720p display, if you're consuming a lot of content like watching videos, for example, where the image quality is quite a bit more important, then overall, a 1080p display, like the one we get with the A33 5G, is going to be quite a bit better. Now, both phones have 128GB of internal storage, with microSD card expansion too, of course, so definitely a great amount of storage here regardless of which phone you get. For the average user, 128 is really more than you're ever going to need. You're probably not even going to have to use a microSD card, and even if you're more of a power user, if you're someone who's constantly downloading a bunch of apps and games and stuff like that, with this amount of storage, you'll still get by just fine. So overall, if storage is important to you, then you're really not going to go wrong with either phone here. For security features, both phones have Face Unlock, and they both have fingerprint scanners. With the BLU F92e 5G, it's on the power key, and with the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G, it's in the display. But starting with the BLU F92e 5G, let's give them a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And now for the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you could see there, both fingerprint scanners were real fast and responsive, no issues at all. And again, remember, both phones have Face Unlock too, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now for the camera setups here, with the BLU F92e 5G, up front, we got a 13 megapixel selfie camera. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 0.3 megapixel depth sensing camera. With the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G, this phone also has a 13 megapixel selfie camera. Then on the back, we got a quad camera setup with a 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. So both phones do have pretty good cameras, but between the two, I would definitely say the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G is the better choice here. First of all, this phone does have an ultra-wide camera, whereas with the BLU F92e 5G, despite BLU's website saying it has an ultra-wide camera, I can't find it in this phone. Usually when you open an ultra-wide camera, it's like right here, and as you can see, this is not doing anything. Whereas with the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G, if we go into the camera app, hit this button right here, as you can see, now we can fit a lot more in the frame. So definitely a huge difference. So overall, if you do want an ultra-wide camera, the A33 5G will have an advantage. And then when it comes to photo quality, both phones are good for what they are. But again, the A33 5G being a little bit higher end in general is definitely going to be better. So if you do care a bit more about photo quality, then definitely keep this in mind. Now to give you an idea of what they can do, first, here's some pictures taken with the BLU F92e 5G. So overall, for what it is, the camera is definitely pretty good here. Sure, if you're really using your camera all the time and you want to get super good photo quality, then you might want to get something a bit better than this. But for the average casual user, for stuff like the occasional Instagram post and then something like Snapchat, or even sending pictures to friends and family, the photos from this phone definitely at least do look presentable. And again, for most people, it is going to be at least good enough. And then here are some pictures taken with the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G. And I would say overall, the quality difference is definitely noticeable. With the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G, these pictures do look quite a bit more professional. So if you're really using your camera a lot, I would definitely go for the A33 5G. But again, for more casual use, the BLU F92e 5G is still going to get the job done. And then for video, with the BLU F92e 5G, this phone can record in 2K in the rear camera and then 1080p in the front. Whereas with the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G, this phone can record in 4K in both the rear and front cameras. So definitely keep that in mind too. When it comes to the RAM and processor, with the BLU F92e 5G, this phone is getting 4GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 700 processor, and the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G is getting 6GB of RAM with the Samsung Exynos 1280. Now, between the two, on one hand, the BLU F92e 5G, for a phone you can get for less than $150, is definitely pretty impressive. I mean, this is really not a slow phone by any means. So if you're doing more basic activities like web browsing, social media, streaming content like videos and music and stuff like that, I would say in general, you are going to get a pretty good experience here. But at the same time, the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G is still a bit faster. So if you're going to be on your phone a bit more, then with the Samsung, you will get a better experience here. Now, I did run a benchmark test on both phones using Geekbench 5. And here are the results I got. So overall, the difference isn't really insane, but at the same time, the A33 5G is still significantly faster. So again, if you are going to be on your phone a lot, I would go with the A33 5G, but if you're more of a casual user, the BLU F92e 5G is still going to be perfectly fine. Now both phones have 5000 mAh batteries, with the BLU F92e 5G supporting 10W fast charging, and the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G supporting 25. So the difference in charging is definitely there. If you do really care about charging speeds, the A33 5G of course will be a better choice, but aside from that, the batteries are basically the same. Both are going to get great battery life. So if that is a priority for you, then you won't go wrong with either phone. And of course, in addition to this, when it comes to longevity, as the batteries degrade, which all batteries do, compared to a much smaller battery, the ones in these phones are not going to wear out nearly as quickly. So if you like to get one phone and keep it for a longer time without having to replace it, either phone will be great for that too. For the software, with the BLU F92e 5G, this phone does have Android 12, which I guess isn't bad considering that in this price range, most phones that aren't Samsungs have Android 12 too. But since this is a BLU phone, I'm really not counting on it getting Android 13 either. Whereas with the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G, not only are we getting Android 13 here, but with Samsung software support, you can also expect to get several other major updates in the future. So overall, if the software is important to you, then definitely go with the Samsung. But otherwise, Android 12 really isn't that bad. So if you're really just looking for something basic and you don't really care that much, the BLU F92e 5G is still at least going to be okay. Something else to keep in mind here is that with the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G, this phone does have NFC, whereas unfortunately, the BLU F92e 5G doesn't. So if you like to use tap and pay, then you will want to go with the Samsung. But on the other hand, the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G does not have a headphone jack, whereas luckily, the BLU F92e 5G still does. So if you like to use wired headphones, then you might want to go with the BLU. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? In general, in almost every way, the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G is definitely the better device here. Despite the BLU being a tiny bit larger, the A33 5G has much better image quality. And again, in bright areas, because of the viewing angles from the AMOLED display, it is going to be a lot easier to see. The A33 5G also has a better camera that can record 4K videos too. It also has significantly better performance, better fast charging, and better software support. On the other hand though, the BLU F92e 5G is still a perfectly fine device for more basic activities, and it does have a headphone jack, which while this is really not that big a difference, if you have a pair of wired headphones, I'm sure you're gonna actually want a headphone jack, so definitely keep this in mind too. But in general, if you really do want to maximize the value and features you get for the money, and you don't mind spending a little bit more, the A33 5G is hands down a much better choice. But if you're really just looking for something basic that gets the job done for more basic activities, maybe you really don't want to spend a ton on your phone, and you really don't care about NFC and the latest software and stuff like that, then in that case, the BLU F92e 5G is still going to be perfectly fine. But this concludes my comparison between the BLU F92e 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G. Again, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the description where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipis Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.